Hey, good evening, guys. Uh, Test. Okay, I thought my mic wasn't working. Hope everyone's having a great night, and everybody has done well at the beginning of this week. A lot of trades worked out very well. If you guys haven't noticed, right, Hood played out extremely well. Entry was on Monday here on this pullback onto this lower high, right? If we take a look at the weekly structure, pretty simple. Previous support, right? Becoming resistance, higher low, breakout on harmonic volume. First pullback on that, we took that and did really well, right? I only took 5 cons on this one, but it paid very well. Ended up trimming as we made its way through Friday's high up here for about 30%ish. So that was a good one. Nike, excellent trade here. Obviously, we sold down into, and we're just going to use different, I guess, different levels here. Not everyone's going to have the same exact ones, but I had the major one, right, which was, and this is the gap that obviously occurred from its earnings, right? So from up here all the way, and technically it goes all the way up here, right? That's the close. But this was the gap, and it sold down on pretty low vol to retest not only the daily gap up here, but also the actual fill at 77.13. And that is where I essentially went long, right? I went long somewhere around this range in this general 77 to 79 spot. And then it had its way up, right? And some of you guys may look at this and see like, hey, this is a bear flag because obviously this is now pushing into this level here, right, which is this gap fill from the gap up now, right? Some of you guys may have it drawn like that with, I don't even know, right, like something like that. I don't think that matters too much. What I was really focused on here was the weekly. And I got exactly what I wanted on the weekly, right? Which was if we delete the white line and just kind of use the actual gap fill at 77, we had a diverging pullback, as you guys can see with volume here. We obviously had a harmonic breakout on the weekly, and everything else has been low vol on the pullback, right? And then we had this nice weekly touch of 77 to fill the gap, and I took that, right? And obviously we had a good hammer close. I would have preferred more volume on this one, which is why I didn't go super heavy. But good open right around the close, and we're now trekking up, right? And we are now touching the daily fill here at 80.67. I think it has a little bit more room up until the actual gap fill, right? Which would be the open here, right? So 82.15. Ish. I'm already out of this trade just because I didn't want to have a ton of stuff in my account that I had to manage and like actively go search for on the alerts in the Discord. So I just kind of closed this out. I closed Hood out. Zoom is still trekking pretty well. Obviously, I took the ads in this general area here, as you guys know, right? I had more reserve ads ready at 65.06, but ever since then, I had a nice little move up. So that was good. Shop, another great trade here, right? Very simple. We broke out through what? The progression gap here. We pulled back, touched the progression gap. This is the area that I took ads against 71.59. And then obviously we had a really nice day on Monday where we ended up pushing about 3%. And then we had a gap up this morning for a 75.57 move. We had an open high-low close, so we obviously pushed up a little bit more and then pulled back and then closed relatively higher than the previous high, right? I would say that's a pretty good close, although it is technically a red candle because it closed lower than the open. It's still a good candle in my opinion, and really this is once again just a weekly chart, right? Kind of a weekly pullback that retested this previous support, became resistance, then it broke out on harmonic volume from the earnings candle, and it simply retested here for another higher low potential in a break of structure reclaim, right? So very simple. This chart really confirms above 77. But yeah, this was another great trade. What else ended up happening, guys? There's a lot that ended up doing really well. I can't think off the top of my head. What else? Oh yeah, TSM, right? TSM, I took half of this off, but if you guys remember, entry was down here around like 68. As we kind of broke through, I was looking for a pullback to add into it again, but then we ended up just kind of having this 3-bar push right into the 175 marker. I did say that there was resistance here, so instead of holding like I did last time, I trimmed half. We are now pulling back into the same spot. I'm not going to make this a crazy heavy position just yet. I want to see if we can maybe open around 165.45 or down into the actual fill, right, which would be 165.09, right? 165 flat, we'll just say. So I was just kind of waiting for this, touch, pull back into this general range, something like that, right? Same exact thing as before. So still have half a position on this one. But overall, every trade has done really well. It's been a very good start to the week. I was able to recover not everything, obviously. I mean, I had a $16,000 hole. I mean, it was technically 20, got it to 16, and I'm now trekking for at least under a 10K loss on TSM. So I'm doing pretty good. Now, SoFi was another good one. I actually was pretty heavy on this one, believe it or not, especially for how it really wasn't a system trade that I take. So I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I took this that heavy. But it just looked good, right? It just looked really good. It did have this progression gap here, obviously marked in green from 716 to 690. I almost said 619. Where it broke out, it pulled back and based the high, right? Usually, I like to take ads here and then reserve the majority for the bottom of the progression gap. So I never even saw this when this initially happened, right? It did push up, it rejected the top of the gap, and then it sold for more liquidity. And what did it test? The bottom of the progression gap. Then it started to mark back up, right? And then I noticed this really having now caught a higher low, touching off the progression gap, a good hammer here on the daily. And then we jump into our weekly time frame. Right, it just looked really good. It looked like it finally had what it needed on this weekly bar to establish a higher low in the progression gap. Rate sensitive data coming out this week with FOMC. It just seemed like a prime candidate to run. So I ended up jumping in on Friday. Obviously today we had an open pullback midway through Friday's candle, and then it started to trek up and had a really good move on Monday. That's what really started those contracts. I think they pushed to about 75, 80%. And that was the majority of my position was taken off the table. I'm always going to do that on anything that's like that cheap. You got to remember those contracts were like 10 cents, guys, and they pushed up to like 0.20. They closed majority at like $17 or $19. I had about 400 contracts, so I mean I had a really good amount of size on that one. And then obviously today was just an open above Monday's high, and then slightly tapped into the gap. These contracts, though, obviously with good volume chasing the breakout, a lot of people like to buy these contracts going into the gap itself. And then obviously each day is now opening above or getting relatively close to the previous day's high. So strong daily bars here. You're going to have people chasing these. There's going to be demand for them. You're going to have some good pressure on those contracts and good demand for them. So they went to 250, I think, percent was the max today. And I obviously was trimming along the way. I only have about like 5 contracts left on this one, so I think I'll just let these not expire worthless because they still are in the money, but I will get as close to expiration as needed. Obviously, right, 9/20 expiration, so I will probably let these roll out until FOMC and then close and whatever ends up happening. Shouldn't affect me either way. If it's a big gain, probably won't be that much money at this point. If it's a loss, it won't be that much money. So it's okay. But yeah, this was another great chart. And that's really it in terms of like a recap. I want to jump in now to kind of the scan for this week.